Okay. I haven't been um, uploading videos on this channel in a long time. I was more focused on playing musical instruments, the cornet, the ukulele, and I was a little bit dejected or thinking about foreign languages. Um, there are periods in lives of people where you focus more on something or something else, or an instrument or an instrument. There are other people you try to pick up all your interests and find the right slots in your daily routine to cultivate. But sometimes you just can't. Some things go to the dogs, so to speak. Go, you put on the side burner. When listen to me. I'm not so much into learning many languages like many people do for several reasons. I think I'm more into playing several instruments, but you know, I play music because I like to. You can play an instrument even alone, especially instruments that are, so to speak, self-contained. I mean, you can play ukulele or your guitar, a little bit less with the trumpet, but you can you have backing tracks and so other stuff. When it comes to languages, it's a so in a way similar. You have to practice every day. You need to be exposed. But I think they're learning languages. I know this sounds bad, but it's more a passive thing. You accumulate and store knowledge, um, more abilities, capabilities, skills through being exposed to language in a meaningful way, so you can make head or tails of what you listen to. I'm all against this grammatical approach. At the beginning, yes, you need to have a book with the audio part, and the book must be intuitive, must be progressive, um, and there is a kind of dormant period where you are exposed to something or you practice something, but you cannot actively. Um, but the simple fact of understanding the language is part of the learning. The simple fact of listening to music is not learning the instrument in itself. I mean, if I have been listening to a lot of clarinet, it's not a given that I can play the clarinet, but it helps. Okay, language listening to the language, a situation where you can um, understand more or less, or be after. You see, I'm using Greek for some reason. That tells a lot how the minds work. Sometimes when you really know a language, you forget you speak in that language. You forget if that piece of information you got it in that or the other language. When I speak English, first of all, we never learning a language. We never uh, learning a language is always an ongoing process. You never stop learning a language, even your native language. Obviously, it's your native language. The amount of progress is very slow. Uh, when you know little thing, few things, obviously everything is new and you learn fast. Then you start learning little. And then when you are on a very high level, you need an active process of being exposed to another level language in order to be almost like a native speaker. Don't think that you will ever be a native speaker, because you will not, but who cares? But you can be on a very, very, very high level. It's almost like a native speaker. Okay, so leave well enough alone. Otherwise, you get like stumped. And it's an excuse not to do things. The same goes for musical instruments. You have to live with your level you are the moment you live. So think that learning a musical instrument or learning a language is a process. And if you don't like the process, you don't like learning. Learning a language, acquiring a language, better said, is being exposed to the language better, if you can see, through pictures, through situations that can help you out a lot. But most of people learn, for example, there are some languages where reading books can be a negative thing if you're not on a higher level. For example, English. The spelling in English is not indicative, for the most part, of what we really pronounce. Missile, missile, princess, princess. House, but we say honest. So the better thing to do if you're learning, for example, language like English, where the spelling is an indication, okay, but many times you don't know where the stress falls. If it's a multisyllable word, you don't really know many things. So the best thing is to learn sounds at the beginning through listening. So you say, if you listen to sit in Tamil, you will say sit, even if your native language doesn't have the sound I. And most of European languages, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, French, Greek, don't have the I sound. I think not even German. So what happens that we tend to substitute the real sound for the closest thing in our language. So we say we don't distinguish seat from sit. Other times they give you wrong information. For example, Italians say a long E and a short E, but this doesn't make sense. If your English is your native language, you know that a short E is E, but the difference is not only long or short. Otherwise, I would say seat and seat, which for an English speaker is just the same thing. One is a guttural. You can use short E or short E, better said, if you know there are two E's and one is E and the other one is E. Other thing that you're exposed to many sources of English and many parts of the English-speaking word, E is not really pronounced E. Many times it's pronounced almost like a ship. In England, they would say ship. In other parts, they pronounce like fish instead of fish. Okay, so you need to, at the beginning, to be exposed to an English is very close to standard English, British English or American English. That's a problem with English. For other languages like Italian, the only problem most of the times in reading is the stress. Greek, they have stress. It's difficult to write because you can spell the E sound in 5 different ways, but if you read it written, it's always E. And moreover, unless it's capital letters, English has stresses. English and Greek has stresses. I'm speaking about the modern Greek. So there are languages where after a while you can read books and you will never acquire bad habits, but not English. Okay? Um, for example, Turkish is quite phonetical, but they don't have stresses like Italian. So it's Istanbul, not Istanbul, it's Izmir and not Izmir towns. So each and every language has their own peculiarities. But the common ground is that when you learn a foreign language, you need to be exposed to the language as much as you can, and to be exposed to a level of language where you understand most of it, like 90%, and the 10% that you don't really understand is the improvement. If 90% is what you don't understand, you cannot have any improvement. And if you understand everything, you can, okay, brush on only what you already know, but it's not real improvement. It's like when you practice running, you need to run on a level that makes you run faster next time. If you run immediately very fast, after 10 minutes you run out of breath and you have to stop running. If you overrun the same way, there will be no improvement. Okay? So many people I hear there are overachievers. They speak 6 languages, and there are a lot of underachievers. And the way I see it, be in the middle, unless you want to become one of those phenomena, YouTube, that speak many languages. We don't even know how well they really speak, because you can prepare your video, you can edit when you speak well. I'd say the goal of learning a foreign language is not showing off on YouTube, is understanding. The first thing, don't jump the gun. The first thing is understanding the language. Okay? It's a holistic thing. Some languages you should even postpone and delay the process of reading and writing, for example, English. Otherwise, you find yourself pronouncing words in a very bad way because you read the word before listening to it. Okay? Other things, if you record yourself, for example, when I play music, sometimes when I play, I don't get the right idea. Why are we doing things? You are just so preoccupied, focused on doing something, that we cannot have a real idea what we've been really doing. So we watch our videos and we discover, oh, I was better than what I thought or what I expected, or I'm worse. If I'm worse, I understand what is the point here. Why? And if I try to say, is there another way I can look up on internet or dictionary, vocabularies, whatever dictionaries, to improve my vocabulary? Other things, language. There is a base of a language that we need to know. Over that base, we need to know that only we strive for perfection that doesn't exist. But in order to achieve 10, we have to achieve 6. We have to aim for 8. In order to achieve 8, obtain 8, we need to strive for 10. That's normal. So, but being also in a situation where you always are in a situation where speaking a language is being judged by native speakers. First of all, if you learn English, most of these native speakers are, sorry to say that, but monolingual people who don't know any other language. So you are in a superior position most of the times. So you don't have to feel inferior because you already know a language, your own language, and they only know one language most of the times. And it's a long story. I should speak in another video about why English speakers are so bad at learning languages. Generally speaking, they are very, very bad speakers for the most part. But other things, I speak English okay, but there are many, many, many languages you can learn, not necessarily English. English is a language that most of learners learn just out of necessity. There's no love. That's why many people, in spite of the fact that English is that people say English is an easy language, is not easy at all. It's easy to speak badly. It's easy at the beginning because it doesn't have a lot of morphology. You don't conjugate verbs. You don't have declinations for words. But does not necessarily mean that the language is easy. There are many other stuff, many other things that can be difficult in learning a foreign language. It takes 10 minutes to learn a perfect. It takes 2 or 3 hours to know how to use it. So it's a myth that English is easy. English is one of the worst spoken languages by foreigners, I think. The more you learn something, the more you discover that it's not that easy. Okay? English, I find that English is just the opposite of what people think. People think it's an easy language, it has few words. English is just the opposite. It's a very rich language, and grammar is difficult. Spelling is extremely difficult, and pronunciation, in connection with the spelling that doesn't give you right clues for the pronunciation, is difficult. And it would be difficult even if the spelling was phonetical. English is a 13 vocalic sounds. Greek has 5, and Italian has 7. I'm speaking about the sounds, not the vowels, which are 5. For example, Greek has more symbols, has more vowels than sounds. Has the epsilon, has the eta, has the omega. But omega is like Omicron. Eta and epsilon is like iota. So it's the opposite of English. Many times people want to exchange. If you know English, if you don't want to learn English, you want to learn Turkish or Italian or French or Russian, you should forget you speak English. You should use only the language you want to learn. So sometimes people want to learn a language and they end up speaking English every time. Everything is explained in English. Forget about any language you don't want to learn when you want to learn a language. You don't need crutches. You don't need English. You can perfectly learn a language without the auxiliary use of English. If I want to teach you Greek, and I say ena, δύο, τρία, τέσσερα, πέντε. Ένα δάχτυλο, δύο δάχτυλα, τρία δάχτυλα, τέσσερα δάχτυλα. Δάχτυλο. I haven't used any English word, but you understand some numbers. The dactylo means finger. If you remember dactylography or other words, for example, Flizzani, Ena Flizzani, Dio Flizzania. What did I say? You understand what Flizzani means. I understand the Ena Flizzani, Dio Flizzania. The A is the plural. Ena Chieri, Dio Chieria. Or in Italian, una mano, due mani. The grammar is inside. I don't express the grammar outside the usage. It's the usage that gives you the grammar, and not the grammar that tells you how to use it. It's the other way around, if you catch my drift. I'm always exposed to English because I like the English language. I like reading books in English. I like watching movies. I'm facilitated because I like it. If you don't like the language, that's a big problem. Your brain tends to reject what you don't like, and your brain tends to erase and cancel from your memory what you don't use. Remember, that's why children, contrarily from what people think, children only learn a language either very well or they cannot learn it at all. If they find this is something that is imposed on them and they don't find any practical usage, that means speaking. Just a second, I have something on fire. Okay. Here I am. Okay, nobody's here. So I was saying, if you don't use the language, but I just started. How can I use it? You can use it even on a very low level. You start writing the names of objects with tags, with posts in your apartment. You can. There is all. If you find a language you need to learn, that you have good material that helps you, can help you a lot. Okay. I'm speaking a lot and now there's nobody watching. Okay.